They say a narcissist is the most frightening hunter in the psychological wilderness, a tireless engine of manipulation. But what happens when the person they drive to the brink finally breaks? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're examining a deeply disturbing truth: why an awakened, intensely angry empath can be far more dangerous than the abuser who shaped them. Society often portrays the empath as a constant victim, a gentle, wounded soul destined to be used by toxic predators. We are taught to believe that kindness means weakness and forgiveness means surrender. Yet beneath that calm exterior rests a sleeping volcano of immense psychological strength that the arrogant narcissist completely overlooks. And the abuser survives entirely on a carefully crafted illusion of total control. They choose you because your light is powerful, assuming your natural goodness makes you easy to dominate. They push your limits, test your patience, and drain every drop of your emotional energy, never realizing they are slowly assembling the very weapon that could destroy them. You endured the silent treatments, the cruel gaslighting, and the slow, painful erosion of your sanity. You forgave them even when they never deserved it, offering a level of grace they cruelly used against you. But there is a real and terrifying limit to human endurance. When an empath finally reaches that breaking point, everything changes. See? This is not about childish revenge or descending to their level of cruelty. An angry empath does not need to invent lies or create messy smear campaigns to tear down a false reality. Your anger is not an uncontrolled blaze. It is a cold, focused beam of undeniable truth that slices directly through their deepest illusions. Think of the most powerful force in nature. It is not the noisy, predictable thunderstorm. It is the sudden, violent shift of tectonic plates hidden far beneath the ground. The narcissist built their fragile empire on top of your endless patience. When that patience transforms into fierce, righteous anger, the very ground beneath their world collapses, moans. They believed they could shatter your spirit completely, shaping you into a permanent source of narcissistic supply. They gravely underestimated the danger of awakening the warrior that lives inside a true healer. An empath's rage grows from a deep sense of justice, making it a frighteningly pure and unstoppable force. We are about to examine the exact stages of this dramatic psychological reversal. We will reveal how a wounded healer can transform into an unbreakable fortress of truth, becoming the worst nightmare of a manipulative mind. Prepare yourself to witness the powerful fury of a fully awakened empath. And are you ready to face the unsettling truth about your own hidden strength? It is time to step out of the shadows of past trauma and see the clear reality of your psychological power. Let us begin exploring why an abuser should fear the righteous anger they created. The balance is about to shift. The predator may soon become the frightened prey, trapped inside the psychological trap they built themselves. You are no longer the victim. You are the inevitable consequence of their cruelty. Welcome to the unsettling, rarely discussed truth of what happens when a kind heart finally decides that enough is enough. To understand this clash, we must first examine the flawed mindset of the narcissist. They are not the untouchable masterminds they pretend to be. Instead, they are deeply broken, fearful, and empty individuals who depend entirely on outside validation. They lack a stable inner core and exist almost like emotional parasites. They targeted you precisely because you possess the life force they desperately lack. Your ability to love deeply, forgive sincerely, and offer warmth was a feast for their starving ego. They believed they could feed from your spirit forever, slowly draining you until nothing remained but a compliant shell. Yet this very dependence on your energy is also their greatest weakness. By attaching themselves so tightly to your emotional energy, they unknowingly handed you the master key to their entire psychological stability. Their survival depends when you suddenly shift your emotional frequency. Their carefully built illusion begins to decay. The abuser's mind is a restless, chaotic battlefield. They cannot sit quietly in an empty room because the crushing silence forces them to face the massive void within themselves. They are constantly running from a frightening monster that exists only inside their damaged mind. Their cruelty toward you was nothing more than a desperate attempt to escape that inner terror. Mienda. The narcissist lives in constant fear of being fully exposed. Deep within their buried subconscious, they know they are hollow imposters with no real worth. The empath naturally carries a sharp intuition that threatens to uncover this hidden truth. Your authenticity alone was enough to blind their fragile and carefully protected ego. Fornit, Phil, think about how their vicious projection worked during the cycle of abuse. Every failure, insecurity, and flaw hidden inside their wounded soul was forcefully thrown onto you. They rewrote reality repeatedly, portraying themselves as the innocent victim of tragedy. Yet this false story requires endless effort to maintain. They suffer from a painful psychological state, often called narcissistic mortification. It is a crushing wave of shame and emptiness that strikes like an invisible attack on the soul. In those rare moments, they realize with horror that no manipulation can ever fill the deep canyon of nothingness inside them. To fight this unbearable emptiness, they act out through destructive, impulsive, and chaotic behaviors. They are desperately trying to jolt their emotionally numb system back to life, but every reckless and cruel action only pushes them further down an inevitable decline. They are drowning in the toxic chaos they created themselves. Amda. The empath, however, understands the deepest layers of the abuser's mind. Over months or even years, you quietly observed their repetitive patterns of dysfunction. You learned exactly what triggers their insecurities and what shatters their inflated sense of superiority. In many ways, you hold the blueprint of their psychological collapse. While they were busy playing shallow mind games, you were unknowingly collecting valuable insight about their behavior. The narcissist arrogantly believed your silence meant total submission. They never realized your quiet awareness was slowly preparing a powerful weapon built from truth. Minda. Then the unavoidable turning point arrives, the moment when the empath's patience finally runs out. This is not a gentle fading of love or tolerance. It is a sudden, absolute psychological break. The heavy mask of forced compassion falls away, revealing a calm but unyielding warrior beneath it. The narcissist tries to provoke the usual reaction, launching another cruel attack designed to pull emotional energy from you. They expect tears, desperate explanations, or emotional anger they can easily manipulate. Mond. But this time they encounter something far more frightening. A cold, steady gaze, filled with complete indifference. Your anger does not resemble their chaotic rage. Instead, it is silent, controlled, and terrifying in its clarity. The awakened empath no longer tries to soften their words or explain their feelings gently. You begin speaking in the calm, unforgiving language of facts. Their protective illusions are stripped away, manned. When you finally speak your truth, it is not an emotional explosion. It is a precise and devastating strike aimed directly at the center of their false identity. Calmly and methodically, you expose their weaknesses, failures, and desperate manipulation tactics. You hold a clear mirror in front of their hidden darkness. The moment they realize you are no longer afraid of them, creates a severe narcissistic injury. Their entire psychological system, the powerful figure they pretended to be, suddenly collapses into a frightened, cornered, and helpless child. They become completely frozen in the face of your new, unbreakable strength. They immediately try to fall back on their familiar manipulative tricks. Intense gaslighting, desperate guilt trips, and the constant shifting of blame. But your awakened anger now works like an unbreakable psychological shield. Their toxic words no longer penetrate your defenses. You clearly see through the transparent mechanics of their failing attempts at control. The empath's anger is so powerful because it is rooted in unwavering justice. You are no longer fighting to repair a toxic relationship. You are fighting to reclaim your own soul. This shift in purpose makes you unstoppable. You have nothing left to lose, while they suddenly have everything at risk. Menda. As you firmly establish strong, unyielding boundaries, the abuser begins to recognize their massive miscalculation. Their primary source of narcissistic supply has permanently shut down. The emotional pipeline they depended on has been completely cut off. The panic that erupts inside their fractured mind is overwhelming and raw. Your anger neutralizes every weapon in their abusive arsenal. They cannot manipulate someone who no longer cares about their fabricated opinions. They cannot gaslight a mind that has reached clear understanding. And they cannot intimidate a spirit that has already walked through their darkest fire and emerged stronger. And at this point, the deeper twist in the story becomes clear. What they once believed was their victory during the abuse was actually the beginning of their downfall. By pushing a compassionate empath to the absolute limit, they unknowingly awakened the one force capable of dismantling their fragile illusion of power. A fully awakened empath becomes the ultimate threat to a narcissist's carefully constructed identity. The psychological collapse soon enters its final and irreversible stage. The narcissist's daily life slowly turns into a painful chain of losses and failures. As you speak your truth openly and without fear, the public mask they worked so hard to maintain begins to crack. Their carefully crafted false identity starts breaking apart, piece by piece. The arrogant confidence they once displayed is replaced by deep paranoia and constant anxiety. They lack the emotional tools to face the horrifying realization that the person they underestimated has now fully exposed them. Their once calculated rage becomes chaotic and ineffective. They may launch frantic smear campaigns and attempt to damage your reputation from a distance, but their attacks lack the sharp precision they once relied on. Their accusations sound hollow, desperate, and obvious to anyone paying attention. Instead of appearing powerful, they begin to look ridiculous. The truth is that the angry empath does not even need to actively destroy them. Simply living your life with strength and independence accomplishes that on its own. They are forced to watch as you continue forward, rebuilding your life and healing from the damage they caused. Your genuine recovery and renewed confidence shine brightly, cutting through their dark isolation and wounding their fragile ego. And over time, the social consequences of their behavior begin to surface. The shallow supporters and easily influenced followers who once backed their manipulative rule eventually abandon them when the illusion starts collapsing. One by one, those allies drift away from the sinking ship. The abuser is left facing a harsh truth. Their entire life was built on deception and manipulation. They become trapped inside the painful world they created themselves. What remains is a lonely psychological prison built from their own choices. The most unbearable realization is that they destroyed the most genuine and compassionate person who ever cared for them. The silence of their isolated existence slowly turns into a form of personal torment. One clear difference becomes visible here. Even when an empath carries deep anger, they are still capable of eventually finding peace, reflection, and healing. The collapsed narcissist rarely experiences this kind of inner calm. Their mental landscape remains a restless and toxic wasteland. The physical impact of this psychological collapse can also become visible. The constant strain of protecting their shattered illusions drains their energy and damages their health. Over time, they begin to appear hollow, exhausted, and unwell as the pressure of maintaining their false identity slowly consumes them from the inside. In the end, their outer appearance begins to mirror the darkness and decay that has long existed within them. There is a deep, almost cinematic sense of justice in this dramatic collapse. It serves as a powerful reminder of an unavoidable emotional truth. No one can endlessly exploit the light of others without eventually facing the consequences themselves. The emotional debt they accumulated over time has finally come due. The tragic downfall of the abuser becomes a chilling display of self-destruction. They carefully built their own traps and burned every bridge fervently trapped, only to realize far too late that they had locked themselves inside the very prison they created. The harm they intended for you ultimately became the blueprint for their own ruin. Meant you must release the heavy burden of carrying responsibility for their downfall. Your anger is not something shameful. It is a protective force meant to cleanse the toxicity that once attached itself to your life. Do not waste your compassion on someone who willingly chose destruction. Their collapse is the natural result of their own actions. The truth is simple and powerful. Your anger did not destroy them. You merely stopped allowing them to destroy you by establishing firm boundaries and finally speaking your truth. You allowed their own harmful nature to reveal itself. You are not responsible for what followed. Your journey now is about reclaiming your emotional strength and independence. Every painful tear you once shed was quietly helping to grow the resilience that protects you today. The suffering was real and difficult, but it forged a stronger, wiser version of you, one that cannot easily be manipulated again. You endured everything they threw at you. Their psychological collapse marks not your loss, but your liberation. While their fragile illusion crumbles around them, your real life finally has the space to grow and flourish. The heavy fog they once placed over your thoughts is clearing. You are free to see clearly again. Don't. Do not look back at the ruins they created. A desperate abuser often tries to drag others down with them, hoping to escape the emptiness they face. Let them remain in the silence they created. Protect your peace and your progress. Understanding the fragile nature of their behavior removes the illusion of their power. They were never unstoppable masterminds, only deeply broken individuals hiding behind manipulation and control. And your survival itself is the strongest response to their abuse. They wanted you broken, silent, and dependent on their version of reality. By choosing healing and building a meaningful life, you dismantle the very purpose of their cruelty. Your happiness becomes a quiet form of justice. The toxic connection that once held you captive is now completely severed. You are no longer the target of their emotional attacks. You are a resilient survivor, moving forward with a renewed sense of strength and clarity. And the scars you carry are not signs of weakness. They are reminders of what you overcame, present your endurance and growth. While the narcissist fades into the consequences of their own choices, trapped within the limitations of their fractured mindset, your life continues to expand with possibility. The contrast between the two paths is striking. One moves toward bitterness and isolation, while the other rises toward peace and fulfillment. You survived the psychological storm. You recognized the manipulation, reclaimed your voice, and watched the illusion collapse. In the end, they destroyed themselves while trying to destroy you. Your inner light remains intact. Move forward with confidence, knowing that the struggle is over and the victory is yours.